Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Well, a little different for you this morning. Instead of doing my normal research last night and everything, I was interviewed last night by George Hobbs on the Fact Hunter radio show. And George was kind enough to send me the video from the interview that we did. So I thought I would share that with you this morning. We touched on everything from prepper topics to politics to you name it. George is a retired E7 in the Army, so you can imagine we had some camaraderie there as well. It was a good time, but I thought I'd share with you guys some good stuff to take a watch there. I'll put a link below for the Fact Hunter radio show's homepage. You can go check it out. There's some really good other interviews on there that you can take a look at. Maybe some people with some information that you haven't seen, because there's some non-YouTubers on there too that he speaks with. But anyway, here you go.
We're live on Spreaker.com. We are live on the website, and we are live on the app, and we're recording video. So if you're listening to this and you want to check out the video, go to thefacthunter.com to check out the video. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 109, our interview with Pinball Preparedness. And he is a prepper from the great state of Tennessee who goes by the pseudonym Pinball Preparedness. Pinball believes that being prepared for a shit-hit-the-fan situation or the end of the world as we know it scenario is something that everyone should do. Be it a snowstorm, a power outage, a job loss, or a zombie apocalypse, you will need to survive somehow. There are many great minds to learn from, and he has absorbed everything he can from each of them. And he says there is no one-size-fits-all solution to preparedness. His awesome YouTube channels, he has two of them like many of us do. We have a main one and a backup. Combined over 100,000 subscribers, and he has garnered well over 20 million views. And I have inserted his YouTube channels directly in the show description. So just go to the show description, click, and it'll take you right to his channel. And I guess that's the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Fact Hunter podcast, Pinball Preparedness. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking here.
Outstanding. And thanks again for your time. Like I was telling you before the show, for the folks listening, he does 3 videos a day, kind of like a breakfast, lunch, dinner type of thing. And he talks about many of the things we talk about right here on this show. So if you would, sir, just give us kind of an introduction, your background, what got you into prepping and your YouTube channel.
Oh, there's a long story. I got an interesting background. I'm ex-Army intelligence. Spent 8 years working on Wall Street, and then the last 18 working in the IT industry. I've probably been prepping, 14 years thereabouts now, ever since the Obama debacle, 2008, and a divorce all hit at the same time. And, it was like you go from having everything to losing everything. It's like, oh, crap, I never want to be here again. So it was like getting my life put back together and going, all right, I'm not going through this again. And so it just balloon from there. I mean, starting like everybody else is, learning how to do this, and over the course of years and years and years, you get better and know more and learn more. And then I got on YouTube a couple of years ago because I'd go on YouTube and I'd see these channels that were either trying to sell me something I didn't need or just giving bad information. And I was like, there's got to be a place for people to go that they aren't going to be sold and they aren't going to be just lied to. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a lot of those channels has a feel like when you go to a Sam's Club or something like that, and there's a guy trying to sell you knives or something like that. I think one of the reasons that so many people gravitate towards you is because you just sit down in front of the camera. There's no fancy intro, no fancy outro, and you just say what's on your mind, and you say it with a lot of conviction. And I think with the state of the country, and when you turn on the TV and you hear people like Biden and the Beto O'Rourke's talking, people are looking for just someone honest. And one other thing that I've come to learn over the past 2 years that I've been doing this is there are a lot more people out there who think like you and I than I ever imagined. And I get those emails all the time that, people thought that, I thought I was the only one who thought like this. Then they hear your show and they gravitate towards the community. So I'm sure you get the same type of feedback as well.
Oh, I put together a meetup for people last fall, and we just did it in a Parks and Recreation facility down in Knoxville. And they're like, "Oh, you can have up to 250 people." I'm like, I was figuring we get like 30, right? And I had to RSVP everybody because we were, trying to make sure security. I eventually had to start turning people down away. I mean, they were coming from Wyoming, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, driving all the way down here just to meet people, with a similar mindset. I mean, obviously a lot from Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, but I mean, we had 22 states represented, I think. And I mean, this was just a 6-hour deal getting together. I mean, no formal speeches, none of this. Here's classes. This was just a chance for a whole bunch of people to get together, mingle, meet other like-minded people, and talk. And we had 250 people show up, and I probably had to tell at least 100 that we couldn't take any more people because of the capacity of the facility. And so everybody's asking me if we're going to do one again this fall, and I've got to find a bigger facility for it.
That's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah. But you're right. It's, all of a sudden you realize there are a lot more people out there that are preppers than you realize. And I mean, where I am in Tennessee, I mean, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. And I mean, my county has 19,000 people in it. Okay. My town has about 1,400. And there are 4 families in town that are subscribers to my channel. I mean, that's just amazing to me. I didn't know them beforehand.
Sure.
They're like, "Oh my God, that's where I live too." And so you start making these connections with people, and it's like, one I can get eggs from, one I can get milk from. I'm helping them with, some of their gardening issues or, whatever would be. And that's how you start building community all of a sudden. It's amazing how many people prep and actually call themselves preppers, because then there's a lot of people that are but don't realize that's what they're actually doing. And it's nice.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see now some of the Gen Yers and the millennials all of a sudden going, maybe this ain't a bad idea to learn some of this stuff, because what I've seen over the years is it's mostly, Gen Xers and baby boomers that were doing this.
Yeah. And it's funny when people think of preppers, they think of somebody with caves in their backyard, and, and granted, there are people like that. But I think even the most normal person who is more concerned about the new series on Netflix, I think even those folks are starting to see there's something terribly wrong going on, and I'm starting to see it when we go into town and we go to Sam's Club. You can see the concerned look on people's faces, the prepping, those type of things. So again, the term prepper, a lot of people think, guy living in a cave somewhere.
Right.
That's not I mean, some people do go to that extent, and, to each his own, that's cool. But even you can prep if you live in a mobile home park, and in an apartment. We were talking about hydroponic gardening. People do that in their apartments. There's tons of channels like yourself on YouTube where they can learn that type of thing. Before we start getting into, I have some questions for you about prepping.
Sure.
Where were you stationed at?
Fort Bliss, Texas, and Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Fort Bliss. So that's right by the Mexican border in Arizona. So you got the hot duty stations.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, my goodness. I went from Polk to Fort Lee to Schofield Barracks to Fort Drum to Fort Carson to Fort Hood. I retired out of Fort Hood.
Okay.
And we ended up living there another 5 years. I'm back on the East Coast. We realized that what's going on right now is a global movement. So While you can go to the hills and escape, and you will have a better chance of surviving if it is shit hits the fan or zombie apocalypse. But at the end of the day, I do think this is global, and I think people should dig their heels in where they are, and prepare where you're at. What are your thoughts on that?
You you're right. At this point, if you haven't already changed locations to where you want to be, you're pretty much dug in to where you are now. The If you have the ability to, if you want to move to the country or something like that, you better have a ton of money to pay a lot of people to get a lot of stuff done real fast. And then you're still going to need to be real lucky because property is getting snagged up all over the place, trying to find people, to do whatever work that you need. Forget building a house out in the country. That's not going to happen. Okay. So, you yes, you're pretty much wherever you are now, you're stuck. I mean, all the stories that come out, we are, 10 weeks away from running out of wheat in the
Yep.
world. Pick one. I mean, gasoline, DEF fluid, anything. As soon as the diesel goes, we're done. Okay. So yeah, wherever you are now, it, it's you're best off trying to figure out how to make that work rather than try to make a move right now.
Right on. Let's get into some of the prepper questions that have been given to me in the past. The first one: what basic essentials should every person have?
Without sounding silly, food, water, and shelter. I mean, this is, and that's harder to do than people think. Okay, a lot of people picture preppers. Oh, you're storing a bunch of food. You're canning. You get, you're a hoarder. You're going to the store and buying stuff. No, I'm not a hoarder, but I've got a good cache of food. Water becomes a very interesting one because try. I mean, FEMA will tell you you need 1 gallon of water per person per day. Realistically, you need 6 gallons of water per person per day because you're going to drink some, you're going to clean with some, you're going to cook with some, you're going to bathe with some. And if you want more food, you're going to need some to water whatever plants you have. All right. Now you start thinking about what 6 gallons of water a day is. All right. That's 72 gallons per person per week. Now talk about a family of four. That's 280 gallons of water in a week. You can't store that. And as much as people say, oh, I went to the store and I bought a couple of cases of water, great. You're covered for a day, maybe two. That's about it. You'd be amazed how fast you run out of water. So, what are people's backup water supplies? Fortunately for me, I live near a lake. I had a pond dug. Uh, you got people saving rainwater collection systems, getting the rainwater off their roof, everything. Good ideas. I mean, that's very basic. I mean, not shingle roof. You want to do a metal roof. But, how are you going to replenish the stuff that you are putting back? There is the big catch. But shelter is the biggest one because, and this is something I 100% believe in, is you have to pay off that mortgage as soon as you can by any way, shape, or form. Because at that point, all you owe on it is the taxes. If the world goes to hell, if we go into another lockdown like we had in 2020, and you're not going to work and you can't pay your mortgage because there ain't going to be, let's say monkeypox turns into something and we go into another lockdown like we did for COVID, there aren't going to be stimmy checks and all this sort of stuff again. The government can't afford it. All right. How are you going to pay the mortgage? Oh, all of a sudden you lose your house. These are the things that are so important. Food, water, shelter. Unless your plan is to go live in a tent in the woods, those are you have to concentrate on those three things before anything else makes a lick of difference. I mean, we get to points on questions, weaponry or backup power systems or backup heat systems, things like that. Sure, those are all important, but the last thing you need to be doing is building your infrastructure in a house that you may lose.
Yep, that's a great point. I get pictures from a lot of my listeners showing that, like in their garage, they have 3, 4, 5 freezers full of meat, and they say, "Look, George, I'm squared away. I got food." But what happens when the power grid goes down? Especially, I don't know if you saw what happened in Texas. I think it was last January because they wanted to go green. They got a very unusual cold winter, and I know my daughter who was living down there. She was out power for an entire week.
Mhm.
So obviously, these people were losing food. Let's say the power grid does go. What sustenance can you recommend that people to stock up on? I mean, beans and those type of things. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, the old comment, beans and rice. Right? Somebody asked me this on my live stream last night. It's like, what would be the very first one that I would stockpile if you were when everybody says beans and rice? The very first thing I would stockpile is oatmeal, not beans and rice. Why? Okay, because oatmeal is I can use it in many ways. I can eat it as oatmeal. It's going to give me the carbs. It's going to give me the energy that I am going to need. I can't really grow it. All right.
Right.
You're not going to grow oats out in your backyard. I can grow beans. So let me start stockpiling stuff that I can't make for myself. Now, if I have the oatmeal, I can make oat milk out of it. I can eat it as oatmeal. I can grind it up. I can use it as bread. So it's a very flexible food source that you can use in different ways. So you're not totally bored with it, I guess to put. But it's a good energy source that you're going to need to do all that other work that you need. As for the people who say, "Oh, I've got 5 freezers out there full of meat," sure, that's great. How much of it's canned? Did you know? Have you got your ball canning jars out, your pressure canner? Have you canned a bunch of that meat? Because if the power goes out, yeah, all that meat is shot. So you're going to need something. If you don't want to do that, what do you have in the way of backup power generators, solar power generators, which ain't cheap? You're talking. I mean, I've got 6 of them, but they will run one 1,300-watt generator will run my freezers for about 24 hours. Well, that's great. But now I need to constantly be charging one while I'm running something else, because if
Right.
you got one, that's wonderful. But how many other things are you going to need power for? A well pump, heat in the winter, light, anything. Oh, I've got tea light candles and I'm going to make a little tea light heater. You ever tried to heat a house in the middle of winter with a tea light heater? Good luck. You're going to be standing there trying to get your fingers warm. That's about
Yeah.
it. Your teeth chatter. Okay.
Right.
We have a little bit of time to think about this now, but none of us know if we wake up tomorrow and there is no power. And I mean, I'm not talking World War III, EMP, or anything like that. I mean,
Right.
sure, those things all could happen, but none of us know if we wake up in the morning. There's supposed to be storms that come through here today. Power gets knocked out. I've had situations where power's been out 3, 4, 5 days. What do? 3, 4, 5 days? Your meat in your freezer? Yeah, probably a lot of it's gone bad. Now how many thousands of dollars have disappeared? It prepping is not prepping for the end of the world. Prepping,
Right.
we all have our own SHTF situations. Food prices go up. We can't afford as much groceries. I mean, I laughed on St. Patrick's Day when we made corned beef and cabbage here for dinner, and I pulled the corned beef out of the freezer from last year that I paid $1.99 a pound for. This year in the store, it was $5.99 a pound.
Incredible. Yeah.
Did,
There's
has anybody else's salary tripled? Probably
Nope.
not. So but the price of corned beef did.
Absolutely. One thing I try to tell my listeners, encourage them to, is with all these skills, skills are perishable. So I've often said prepare for emergencies, but also do rehearsals. Remember in the military, anytime before we'd go on a mission, we would have rehearsals. I have a ham radio. I try to once a week. That locally we all do radio checks Mondays at 7 p.m. I don't always do, but I always make it a practice once a month to do commo checks. And then we also check expiration dates on medical supplies and batteries, and rotating stock like they do in the grocery store. It's the same thing. Make sure you're eating the oldest if you have cans of peas or corn, eat the oldest stuff first.
Yep. I mean, little things that I've advised people to do in the past, tell the family ahead of time, unless you've got people that in the household that don't believe in this at all, that you're going to shut off the main circuit breaker Saturday morning and you're not going to turn it back on until Monday morning, and see how the family does with no power for the weekend. No charging cell phones, no watching TV, the dishwasher doesn't work, you can't make a pot of coffee. See how, I mean, better to practice it where, oh crap, I learned something that I'm short of, than learning in the middle of an event where you're going, what do we do now? Little things, I mean, that I try to explain to people. You're a diabetic, you need insulin. Insulin needs to be refrigerated. There's some antibiotics that need to be refrigerated. What happens if the power goes out for a week? What's your backup plan to keep your insulin cold? You need that to live. It's it's those things that when you do some of these practice exercises, you realize things that you would have never thought of in the first place. Oh, I'm going to go take a shower. We don't have any power. The well pump doesn't work. There's no water. Oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Can't flush, whatever it would be. Oh, crap. What does that mean? That means you got to go out somewhere, haul a bucket of water and pour it down the toilet to flush the toilet. All of a sudden, maybe, it's not as convenient. But these are the things that we take all this stuff for granted. And if you put yourself in a situation practice wise, you'd be amazed at what you learn that you're short of and how to figure out a solution. It's much better to figure out a solution when your life doesn't depend on it.
Right. Yeah. You do these exercises during a dry run. You add them to your list. You get them. You rehearse again. That's a great advice. One thing that I really wish people would do, if you're listening, you can even go on Amazon, and I hate saying Amazon, but you guys get what I'm saying. You can get a magnesium, because you may have 10 Bic lighters in your drawer. I'm a big fan. I always start, even when I grill, I use my magnesium striker. Make some sparks, learn how to build fires from scratch.
Oh yeah, I mean, having a ferro rod, do people understand, that your dryer lint has some use? Stuff it in a toilet paper tube, wrap it up in some wax paper, and you've got a great fire starter right there. You're not going to have a Bic lighter. I mean, do people know how to use a bow drill? I mean, very, very few people can start a fire with a bow drill, let alone even know how to make one, what kind of wood they're looking for to do with it. So, all right, what do you have in the way of backup ways to start a fire? Do you have a magnifying glass? There's some way to do it. Do you have cotton balls and petroleum jelly? What's that for? Another great fire starter. If you're trying to start wet wood on fire, some of these little fire starters that you can throw in an old prescription bottle or whatever may save your life, and don't cost you anything.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's free. What should somebody? Well, no. Before I do that, let me ask you this. One of the most important ones is communication. All the cell phone towers go. I mean, who has landline left anymore?
Right.
All that goes. What is a way? Do you personally have any type of communication and system for extended family or friends in that type of situation?
The local. I mean, and I've got everything from two-way radios to CB radios to walkie-talkies to ham radio. I mean, I've got a base station set up in the house for CB, whatever it would be. I mean, I've got it all. The problem that you get is somebody on the other side has to have it and know how to use it too. Yeah. And, that's one question I get all the time, and there really isn't a good answer. If the balloon goes up, and my family is 500 miles away, how do I get in contact with them? And I'm like, chances are you're not going to be able to. So what you need to have ahead of time is a prearranged plan of what is going to happen. That you need to know their primary route, you need to know their alternate route to, if you're the location they're coming to. You need to know primary and alternate route they're going to get to. You need to know what channels on what radios they are going to be monitoring to see if you can do it. This all has to be planned ahead of time. It's not, oh, gee, the power went out. We have no communication. I hope my daughter knows enough to get on, channel 27 on the CB and hopefully pick up the skip in the middle of the night so she can hear me. I mean, that's not a plan. A plan is, okay, I'm going to take this highway to this highway to this highway to this highway to this highway, and I'm going to be monitoring this channel the whole time. If anything ever happens, this is where we get to. Chances are that's going to be on a ham radio if you're lucky enough to get there. But, of course, you got to have a ham license to do that. It's not just pick it up and use it like a walkie-talkie. So, again, we get into a training type issue.
Yep, precisely. So, let's say that it hits the fan, everything's going sideways. Obviously, if it does, in my opinion, this fiat currency, the American dollar, isn't going to be worth anything. I think you're going to see a lot of people who haven't prepped and maybe have a little bit of money. Let's just say the supermarkets are bare empty. They may be coming up to people. Obviously, a black market's going to become a thing.
Right.
But people aren't going to want to give up what they have left food-wise for $1,000 because that cash doesn't mean anything to them to be without food. So what commodities do you think it's worth having? I mean, food's going to be a big one, but what can I stock up on to be able to trade with people when the dollar becomes completely worthless?
I mean, and there's that's a double-edged sword, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I'm stockpiling ammunition because ammunition is going to be like money in a SHTF situation because you can barter with it. And I'm going, if you try to do that, you're an idiot. The last thing you want to do is give somebody something they can kill you with. Here's a box of ammunition. Oh, thanks. I'll take the case of tomatoes. Great. As the guy sits there and loads his 9mm and goes, good, bang. Now he takes the 9mm ammo and he takes the box of tomatoes, goes home, and you're laying there on the ground. Okay. So ammo is certainly not one. Skills are huge. Skills are probably your number one barter ability. Do you have, young guy, strong guy, have the ability to cut firewood? Do you have medical skills? Do you have gardening knowledge? Things like that. Know how to field process a deer. I mean, those are skills that you can trade with somebody that you might be able to get something out of. Liquor is a good one. I know people have said things like marijuana or cigarettes or whatever. I'm not a big fan of doing that. Cigarettes will go stale, and the last thing I want to do is start trying to save, to stockpile marijuana. I don't think that's a good idea. But it's going to be silly stuff. It's going to be dimensional lumber. It's going to be pieces of metal, because everybody's going to have to figure out how to repair things on their own. I mean, if you have a tire pump, you've got a cottage industry right there if you can put air in tires, because the only transportation people is going to have is a bicycle. And how many people have an air pump? Most people have them, and it's electric one. Well, if there's no power, guess what?
Right.
It doesn't work. So yeah, if you start thinking outside the box on, tools like shovels, hose, I'll let you borrow my shovel for a day, and the rent will be, a dozen eggs. And, because that's what it's going to take. The biggest problem that we're going to face is everybody who didn't prep, and they're going to be freaking out going, oh my God, I need to eat. What can I do? And like you said, your money's worth nothing. I'll trade you my BMW for, a dozen eggs isn't going to happen. So their idea is, I'm going to go steal it. And, as I've said to many people many times, you're going to spend, a good portion of your day, probably each person a shift, guarding, guard duty on your gardens, because that is your life. And if somebody comes in there and robs you clean of all your tomatoes at night, you don't have anything to eat for the next week or whatever it would be.
That's a great point, and I just made that the other day. When the city, when the folks in the cities and the suburbs, when they run out, they will start coming out to our neck of the woods if we
Yep.
live in the rural areas. And like for me, it's just me, my wife, and my daughter. So that's I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but at some point you really do have to come up with a plan on. I mean, obviously, I don't think you can go to Lowe's and buy concertina wire like we used to do back in the day and set up concertina wire. Maybe that is something you can get. But do you have any tips for, like, let's say somebody who is just like a husband and wife, and maybe they have cows. They have, I mean, I've got close to 30 chickens, a big garden, and those are the type of things that people are going to come for. Are there ways for someone who maybe has, I mean, I have to sleep at some point, right? Do you have any tips for how people can protect their land?
You're going to need motion detector lights for sure. Solar operated motion detector lights. They work great. A dog or two is a very good idea.
Great point.
Okay. Again, it's going to be somebody posting guard duty. If you have cameras that you can put trail cams out or something, that's going to be the best way to do it, because somebody can sit in front of a computer screen and watch 6 different places. Think of a Las Vegas casino. All right. They can watch 6 different places and see where any activity is, rather than be on the south side as somebody comes in the north side of the property. They can watch everything and know where it goes. Hey, Dad, there's somebody out here. Need you to come down real quick. And now you're taking care of it. But yeah, cameras, lights, dogs. And again, you're talking about concertina wire or something. What can you use for a barrier? What are your natural barriers? Do you have trees? Put out rose bushes. Put out any sort of thorny bushes around the property. Blackberry bushes or whatever would be. Those are good deterrents from somebody walking through. If you get into, I mean, I'll say this will sound kind of silly, but go back and watch the old Charles Bronson movie, Death Wish 2. And think of some of those ideas. You're looking at making caltrops. Maybe you are making punchy pits if you have to. If we get in a bad enough situation, you may be using some of those guerrilla tactics that the Vietnamese used.
Yeah, absolutely. So you watch that Charles Bronson movie, or you can watch Home Alone for those ideas.
Yeah, there you
go. This is a good one. How do you determine whether to bug out or bug in?
You should have already figured that one out. All right, that's step 1 of prepping is, am I staying here or am I leaving? Okay, because wherever you are planning on going, that is where your supplies need to be. If I go out and buy 1,000 pounds of food, just saying, for example, or all my weaponry or whatever it is, and it's all here at my house, but my plans are to bug out 50 miles away. How are you? It's not like you're going to get 8 hours notice to go pack your car. Oh, by the way, this is going to happen. We're going to invade your house in 8 hours. So, please pack up your truck and take all your stuff. No, it's not going to happen. You need to figure that out from the beginning. And this is why I say there is not a one size fits all for prepping, because, you may be the one that is the bug out location, or you may be the one that's going to the bug out location. So for me, I'm, as I've said, the only way I'm ever leaving here is if the forest goes on fire or the Chinese come over the hill. Okay. That's it. But family coming to see me, I've got to be prepared here for them to come here. So there's, all of a sudden there's a whole lot more to it. Where are people going to sleep? Where water, food, whatever would be, how am I going to take care of people that are coming here, that we've already got the plan that this is their bug out location. So yeah, to bug out or bug in, you need to figure that out. That's step 1. Where am I going?
Yep, great point. One thing I do want to encourage folks, even if you have a little bit of land, I'm sure you have a well for your water, correct?
Yes.
but you rely on the pump switch, right, to pull the water in for when you shower. It's not like a gravity fed, correct? So you
Well,
do need the.
actually, I've got a couple of, I mean, this is it, the old prepper thing, two is one, one is none. Okay. So, yes, I have a pump that is an electric powered pump. The electricity goes out. What happens? I've also got a backup hand pump out there so I can do that. What else do I have? I also have solar generators that are hooked into my uh, fuse box, so that if the power does go out, I can hook up portable solar generators to that and run my well pump, and I can get water there. Oh, if that doesn't work, I've got a garden pump that I can go pump water out of the pond and bring it into the house and use that somehow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's that is awesome. But that's what I wanted to say. Now, maybe not in Texas. I'm sure there's some states where this might not work out. But like where I'm at, I'm putting in a hand pump well by myself. I think I hit water. I'm going to hit water around 6 or 7 feet. And there's a lot of people, especially if you're on the East Coast or near a coast, you can build your own hand pump well to get water. And obviously, you may have to take some certain steps to get it clean, but at least you'll have water to bathe, and maybe you could keep the clean water for just drinking.
Yep. And people take for granted how important that is, because hygiene and sanitation will be the things that will kill more people
Yes.
than bullets or anything else. You know, if there's no power, chances are there's no doctors, there's no hospitals, there's no nothing. You can't afford to get an infection because you're not going to get the antibiotics unless you've already got them. There isn't going to be a way to get them. I mean, you go through history and some of these simple things that people died from. And, what people need to start doing is going back and educating themselves. God knows the school systems don't do it, on, how people lived in the 1700s and the 1800s, because without electricity, that's exactly what we are doing again. There is no cell phone. There is no internet. There is no Netflix. There is no furnace. None of this stuff works without electricity. And, somehow civilization survived for thousands and thousands and thousands of years without electricity. We've only had electricity for the last 100 years or so. All right.
Yeah.
And mind you, this is, 2022. So, all those people that came before you, the reason you are here is because they were able to survive beforehand. Your ancestors all survived through that. If they didn't survive, you weren't here. So you need to go back and learn how they did things. And that, in a nutshell, is how you need to start prepping. When there is no gasoline powered engine, when there is no electricity, what do you have to do? Do you have hand tools? I mean, everybody's got a hammer. Okay. Do you have a hand saw? Because the skill saw is not going to work. You got a tiller. That's great. Okay. Do you have a hoe? Because you might be doing it that way. That's when you wake up and you go, holy crap, what could possibly happen?
They're all great points. And speaking of let me
just say one thing. Let's not even say that the electricity goes out. Let's say the electricity gets so expensive because all they want to do is force this Green New Deal crap on us that you can't afford to, which we're already seeing places. Look at what's going on in Europe, where you can't afford to turn on the heat or the air conditioner or the dishwasher because it'll cost you an arm and a leg. I mean, Detroit came out the other day and gave a warning to all their people that said between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m., they're going to raise the rates on electricity tenfold between those hours because of a heat emergency.
Really?
3 and 7 p.m. What do you do? Okay. It's the hottest part of the day.
Absolutely.
For most people. It's also the kids coming home from school. It's when you're trying to make dinner. And, instead of your electricity costing you 30 cents an hour, now it's $3 an hour. Okay. So that's $12 a day times 30 days. Gee, your electricity bill just went up $360 a month.
Wow, that's I've heard stories on the gas side, especially in I think Eastern Washington. We've had a few callers say that they're running into shortages, not just the prices, and they expect the prices to exceed $10 in the very near future. One last question before I do want to pick your brain about what's going on.
Sure.
Do you recommend, obviously, going back, I think all of us have our little first aid kits and things like that. What about, do you practice or can you recommend any natural remedy type of books for, for, like you said, there's a lot of people who rely on medication, but there could come a point when that medication's not available.
There are so many, but I mean, and I'll give you this, okay? God put everything on the face of the earth that we need. Okay, it does not have to be, everything does not have to be chemical.
Agreed.
And convenience made us turn everything into chemicals. But if you've got mosquito bites or a rash or something like that, go out and learn to identify some plants. Go out and find plantain in your yard. Chances are it's growing. If you got weeds in your yard, chances are that's one of them. All right. You can chew that up as a painkiller. Okay. If you've got a headache, you can get it wet and put it over the mosquito bite. It'll dry up the mosquito bite or the bee sting or whatever, looking at something like that. You can go into the medicinal benefits of dandelions, of elderberries, of so many herbs that you have in your kitchen already that you can use for blood pressure, pain relief, whatever would be. I can't say recommending a book because, and I'll say the same thing here that I say on my channel. I don't recommend books because books are too generic. They're written to sell books, not written to give information. And and I use gardening as an example all the time. I'd go out and buy a gardening book that's great, but if it's telling me how to grow oranges for a chapter, what do I care? I can't grow oranges here, so that's a waste. Go out and find the stuff that's going to be appropriate to you. Do you have high cholesterol? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? Do you have pick something, obviously bee stings, ant bites, bug bites, all those sort of things, everybody gets. So you need to find what's going to work there. But that goes back again to the skills that we talked about before, because inevitably there is going to be somebody that that is going to be much more passionate about learning all the different medicinal herbs and medicinal plants that are out there than you are. So maybe they are the pseudo doctor in the community where you are the guy who builds something or the guy who cuts wood or whatever. That's what you're good at. Everybody's got to find what they know best. None of us should try to be a jack of all trades. The lone wolf mentality is if you're a lone wolf, you need one tool. You need a shovel. Start digging a hole 6 feet deep, and you're good.
There you go. And one disadvantage of all this wonderful technology we have is, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, like every single family on the street, we knew their first name, their mom, their dad. Yeah. In today's age, there's a lot of people who don't even know the name of the person who lives next to them. I think this is a time where people need to get out of their comfort zone and go out and meet their neighbors. Find out if they're, I don't want to say if they're good or bad. I guess the way to say it is try to find the like-minded people in your community. So if it does hit the fan, you have others to lean on and you can work as a team and you'll have a better chance of survival. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to find out who is going to be an ally and who's going to be a threat, even in your neighborhood, because even where I live, granted, I can see 3 houses from me. I'm on 3 acres, but I know there's one guy in the neighborhood here who's like, what do you need a garden for? You can just go to the grocery store and buy food. Okay. Here's somebody who completely has his head up his posterior. And, what's going to happen when he can't buy food? He's going to go, oh, I know where I can go get some. I'll go over to Pinball's house. No, that's not going to work. So, but I know ahead of time that he's going to feasibly be a threat. So I know to watch him a little closer. I know who the allies are. I know who the threats are, and we all do.
Of course. I do want to switch a little bit. You spent a lot of time in the military. With everything that's going on in the world, and you serve, do you feel a little betrayed by by our government with the way they're trying to take us?
A lot would be a better way to do it. I mean, when I'm watching, and this isn't new with Biden's administration. This goes back
Sure.
to Obama's administration, and Obama basically doing anything he could to weaken the military, to make everybody woke, to get rid of the leadership, the command structure in the military that actually was a fighting machine, and put together the paper pushers and the woke crowd in the Pentagon. But you look at what happened in Afghanistan last summer. Oh, we're just going to leave 13 servicemen back there to die. We're going to leave $80 billion worth of equipment back there. No big deal. Okay, but let's talk about LGBTQ rights, because that's more important. The hell with the southern border. I mean, you asked where I was top of the show, and a lot of the work I did when I was down in El Paso was with Border Patrol. I mean, some of the things, I trained tankers on how to handle prisoners. I trained FBI agents on how to handle drug dealers. And I worked with Border Patrol on interrogating drug mules. And I look at all the stuff that we did back then, and I'm like, now it's just, hey, let's just let everybody over into the country. It's like, what did all those people that did serve, let alone the people that died serving their country, do it for? If you get some pencil neck going, we'll just give it all up, hey, because meat comes from the grocery store, and there's enough everything for everybody in the world. Why doesn't the whole world move to the United States? The U.S. is not a landmass, all right, even though it is, but the United States is a mentality. It is a collection of people with a mentality. It is not defined by the borders of the states. It's defined by the people who love their freedom, will fight for their freedom, and say the hell with everybody else. We're not a bunch of pansies in this country. And unfortunately, we have elected/selected a bunch of people that have never worked a day in their life, for the love of country. When I see half of this country basically standing up every day and going, we hate capitalism, we hate the United States, we want to see socialism, and I'm a Cold War era vet. Yeah, that pisses me off.
Yeah, agreed. I'm very frustrated too, and I had some close friends. One buddy who lost in Iraq in 2011, and Command Sergeant Major buddy of mine who was killed in Afghanistan by an Afghanistan soldier he was training in September of 2018. And when I saw what happened in Afghanistan, that may have been the most infuriating day of my life.
Uh-huh.
You sent all these guys, and again, sorry, this pollen's killing me. If you believe the story about 9/11, why did we go to Iraq and Afghanistan? And we stayed there for all those years. And then we just left. What did we accomplish? It just, as we come on to Memorial Day, these type of things just kind of come back and infuriate me, man.
Yep. Yeah, we accomplished spending billions and billions of dollars. We accomplished getting a whole bunch of people killed.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that happened is, oh, gee, the Taliban is back in control. So in other words, changed nothing. We just paid a ton of money and cost a bunch of lives to accomplish absolutely zip.
Yeah, and
But
the
again,
military. Sorry, go ahead.
Ask anybody, what was the ultimate goal of the war in Afghanistan? The government can't tell you that. We didn't have one. They didn't have a goal of what to do. Oh, we need women's rights and let women get educated. Don't give me that crap, okay? The goal was to pad your pockets in Washington. That was it. And the cost of it was a bunch of young kids' lives.
And that's why they didn't declare a war on Afghanistan. They didn't declare a war on Iraq. They declared war on this invisible entity, the war on terror.
Right.
So they could use that and to use at their will. Let's shoot Syria. Let's take out Gaddafi. Let's do this and that. And of course, I'm sure, 100% sure you saw the clip the other day with George Bush accidentally saying invading the sovereignty in Iraq. And then he laughed about it. I never wanted to jump through a computer monitor in my life and choke the hell out of somebody. How
Yes.
dare you laugh at that, man?
Yes, exactly. You know, how many Bush family members died overseas? Oh, none, because you were all too busy eating off of your silver spoon.
Yep.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah, I feel you. I have a couple more questions, and then
Sure.
I know you got to go. You're a busy guy, but I do want to know: do you think that this year is the year that they come for it all? And do you think that they plan to take our weapons in the very, very near future?
We have 6 months to find out because, and I know there's a lot of people out there say, "Oh, the November elections will never happen." You know, they'll do something to, uh, to prevent them or whatever.
Yeah.
That would cause a complete uprising in this country if that didn't happen. I mean, we still had elections during World War II. We still had elections during World War I. We still had elections during Vietnam, everything like that. You're not going to tell me that we're not going to have elections. If we don't, you're going to have a civil war in this country instantly. But what I think we are going to see is the Democrats throw the baby out with the bathwater in the next 6 months and try to ram anything that's insane through as fast as they can, because they know it is going to be a bloodbath in November, and they are going to lose both houses without any problem. And at that point, Joe is a complete lame duck, because 2024 is almost, unless something miraculous happens, we'll have a change of parties in the White House in 2024 too. So they know they've got 6 months to push through gun control. I mean, look what happened yesterday with the Uvalde
Mhm.
deal. And it was funny because I had a live stream last night at 8 o'clock, and Biden was supposed to come on at 8:15. And I said at the top of the show, I said, I guarantee you there's going to be no sympathy for the people. It's going to be a bunch of crocodile tears. And I said, they're going to turn it into a political talking point. And sure enough, we've got to have common sense gun control. Deer aren't out there wearing Kevlar, blah, blah, blah. All the same crap they talk about all the time. And my question, I have two questions to that over and over and over again. Why is it that you're so concerned about a 7 to 10-year-old getting killed? And it's, oh my God, it's so horrific. But you don't care about the 890,000 babies that were killed last year medically by your lovely Roe versus Wade decision. That's okay. So when does human life start to become important? When somebody's 7 years old? You know, you know, and again, the gun control measures that are already in place. Oh, I don't know. Let's take a look at Chicago. Let's take a look at Baltimore. Let's take a look at Detroit. Oh, it's pretty much impossible to get a gun there, right? Yeah, except there are murders every weekend in those states. I mean, Chicago's got 223 murders already this month or this year. It's the middle of May.
Well, they made drugs illegal, and you can't find drugs. I mean, that worked. So if they
Oh
make
yeah,
guns illegal,
right. The war on drugs was such a success, right?
Right?
God, yeah. No, it's the Democrats will do anything and everything they can to run every abortion, take your guns away. We all know. I mean, you have to be blind not to know that this whole $4, $5, $10 gallon of gas thing can easily be fixed. It's just the Democrats don't want to do it, because if we start pumping oil, then nobody will go, well, we need electric cars. And that's all they want is electric cars. The grid can't, I mean, NERC came out yesterday and said 40% of the country can expect blackouts over the summer. All right. This is the Energy Regulatory Commission of the National Energy Regulatory Commission is saying 40% of the country can expect blackouts this summer. If we can't handle running air conditioners, how in the hell are we going to handle running a whole bunch of electric cars? Oh, we want to have electric semis, right? To get all these trucks delivering things. Tell me how many there are on the roads right now. Zero. How many semis are there? 30 million semis in this country. How long do you think it's going to take to replace 30 million semis? Peterbilt's not going, boom, there you go. There's 30 million new ones for you. Try running an electric car up in a Vermont winter, in a Minnesota winter, in a Montana winter. They don't work.
Nope.
Batteries don't like cold weather. But the Democrats are hell bent on this climate change fiasco. Again, I'm not telling anybody doesn't know on this one, but it was global cooling until it was global warming. That didn't work. So let's just say it's climate change. So that way, if it gets colder, it gets warmer, we can say we're right. Look everything going on in Davos right now. Oh, let's fly our private jets in there and take helicopter tours of the Alps and everything like that, while we tell everybody, to stop their carbon emissions.
Yeah, Klaus Schwab and Borla are the biggest hypocrites. All those guys, Gates, they're just the biggest hypocrites in the world.
Oh yes, absolutely. But I mean, all it is trying to get us back to serfdom.
Yes.
We want a king and a bunch of peasants, and they want to be the king. And that's why the Second Amendment is so important, because it is the Second Amendment is literally the only thing that is keeping the world from globalism.
Yeah.
Because globalism does not work if the United States is not on board, and globalism will not work in the United States as long as we are armed. So if the Second Amendment, if they were ever able to disarm the American people, then that's the end. That's the end of our sovereignty, and we are all now ruled by Tedros or something like that, with this whole thing with the WHO.
Yeah, the World Health Organization.
Yeah, and you take a look at him. I mean, his political party is the U.S. government considers his political party in Ethiopia a terrorist organization. So Biden is trying to give up the decisions on our medical protocols to a terrorist. Hey, at that point, why didn't we make bin Laden the Secretary General of the UN? That would have been a good idea.
Yep, spot on. And I thought of this because, again, you're tracking the whole thing where they want to give WHO's sovereignty. They can declare pandemics. How many times have you heard politicians in the past say that gun control is a pandemic or an epidemic?
Oh, yes. And again, it goes back to, all the worn out line: guns don't kill people, people kill people. Mental illness is the epidemic, not the gun. Okay. This kid yesterday was completely loony, and there were all sorts of different red flags on him. And I hate to use that term. Why was this kid allowed to own a gun? How the hell did he pass a background check? Somebody said that he's a felon. Okay. How the hell did he pass a background check? Where are the social workers, if you will, that we want to replace the police with, to be checking out these people that aren't quite all there upstairs? And again, we can go right back. Let's take a look at that $40 billion deal that just passed. Some of the money that was going in there is to teach people out in some Pacific island, the American Rescue Plan or whatever it was. Some of that money went to teach some Pacific territory we have how to build Aboriginal canoes. Why don't we take some of that money and use it to harden some of the schools, or put public safety officers in the schools so stuff like this doesn't happen, instead of wasting it on transgender studies, or giving it to the Lincoln Center, or, the Indonesian caterpillar experiment, or whatever, the hell it is. Our government has completely failed us as a country. And, unfortunately, too many people do not educate themselves at all on what or who they vote for. I mean, you've probably seen these too. There was a video out the other day. They were walking around New York with a bunch of people who were in cap and gown graduating from college. I don't know what the university was, but this man on the street type reporter was asking questions. People are in cap and gown. How many states are there? I don't know. What's the capital of the United States? The United States has a capital. Who fought in the Civil War? That was Kennedy. And these are the answers that we are getting from college grads. And the scary part is these are the future leaders of this country. You wonder why this country is so screwed up. It's because the people that are sitting in Washington don't care about the people anymore. They just care about the power.
Yeah.
And it's about time that the people took the power back, because the politicians work for us, not the other way around. We tell them what to do, not them telling us what to do. And that's been forgotten in this country.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's been a while too. And that's one of I speak on that subject quite often. Actually, I'm a guest Friday night, and I speak a lot about how in the 70s, when they officially took over the Department of Education and hijacked it from the states. And you know, if you look at the Constitution, that's a 10th Amendment issue, that education belongs to the states.
Yep.
The federal government hijacked it. They've dumbed the children down with Common Core and just, you know, memorize, regurgitate. They don't challenge the children. They don't teach them any life schools. And a lot of people like myself saw that back in 2020 with the lockdown, and we immediately pulled our daughter out. We've been homeschooling for the last 2 years, and it was probably the best decision that I've ever made.
I mean, you know, you look, and this is why I said at the top, why it's nice to see some of the Gen Y and the millennials coming around to the prepper thought, because, you know, turn on your computer, watch TV commercials, go into the grocery store, whatever it is, you know, there's a bunch of these kids that they can order the fanciest cup of coffee at Starbucks in the world. They couldn't make a cup of black coffee at home if their life depended on it. You know, you get the meal kits that you can order from the mail, and it's, you know, we don't have to cook anymore. You know, pop it in the microwave and you're done, because you got so many of these kids that need a recipe book to make ice. You know, it's just, you know, there are no skills. I mean, we've all said for years upon years upon years that you know, kids aren't taught to balance a checkbook. You know, why do we have all these student loan problems? Because nobody ever told the kid what it would take. You know, they never sat down with pencil and paper and figure out how many hours they would have to work to pay back the loan that they were taking out so they could go to Cancun for spring break. You know, that's the problem. We've become so much of a instant gratification society. You know, I've got to have it now, and it's become the detriment, because individuals, companies, the government, hey, we'll just borrow the money. You know, who cares? We'll pay it back later. You know, why worry about tomorrow? I'm just living for today. You go back a generation or two. You know, ask, you know, your parents, your grandparents, whatever would be. You know, most of the listeners, I'm assuming, same way, same age group. You know, did they have credit cards? No. When they bought a car, how did they buy it? Did they finance it? No, they bought it in cash. Okay. A house, that was about the only credit you had. That it was a mortgage. There were no credit cards. There were no car payments. You know, that was it. You know, you either paid for it or you didn't get it. And that's where we as individuals, the companies of this country, and the government need to get back to, is we need to go back to a pay-as-you-go program, because we're $30 trillion in debt. There's no possible way ever to pay that off.
Oh, no.
And the government knows that. So that's why when you talk about this whole CBDC thing, you know, they're like, cool, let's blow the whole thing up and start over. And you see countries all over the world trying to borrow money like crazy. And we're just going to have a worldwide bankruptcy, and everybody's going to go, okay, that's it. And how that will work, this is what I was saying earlier about buying your house. Look at the Soviet Union in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. The government owned everything, right? People lived in their apartments, did whatever. What wound up happening? The government signed over the titles to those houses to all the people. What's going to happen here? You're in your house. If you're there and the whole world blows up, chances are that's where you'll be able to stay. So whatever you have when the balloon goes up is probably what you will be able to keep, unless, of course, we get into Klaus Schwab and you'll own nothing and be happy.
Right. Right. That's all great information. I'd like to close by asking you this question, and I ask all my phone callers and my guests this question. Is there a way out of this pending doom, or have we crossed that line a while ago?
On an individual basis, yes. On a country basis or on a worldwide basis, no. You know, we will wind up going back to tribal living, small groups. You know, the United States is not going to continue to exist much longer as 50 states. I mean, I think we've all realized that at this point that the left and the right cannot coexist anymore. Uh, I've said for a long time, you're eventually going to see some sort of secession from the United States. Will probably split into between 3 and 5 countries. Uh, but yeah, the way the world is right now, no, it cannot continue to go on. The globalist making it bigger is not going to help it. Everything's going to have to come into being smaller, and that's the way we will wind up coming out the other end.
I agree. And like they say, OTSS, only the strong survive. And hopefully everybody heeds the advice that you spoke on tonight. And I hope everybody subscribes to Pinball Preparedness's YouTube channels. Don't forget, there's 2 of them. Go to the show description. Make sure you subscribe to both of them, and make sure you like those videos when you watch them, because that really helps him with his algorithms. And he does 2 or 3 videos a day, lots of wisdom. And Pinball, is there anything that you would like to close with, sir?
No, just say thank you for having me on. Enjoyed the conversation, and always nice to talk to other like-minded individuals and get the word out. Wake up some people.
Yes, sir, because at this time in the world, I don't think you can have enough friends.
There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it there. Everybody stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and until next time, on behalf of Pinball, we will see ya.